Hi everyone, I've been wanting to do a little massage video for some time now, and I'm struggling with finding the right spot in my house to show you because where I would normally roll my body out in the basement is too dark, way too dark, even with the lighting system that I have. And this room is great, but it's not quite deep enough for me to be able to pull my camera back far enough so that you can really see what's going on. So some of the wall stuff I've not figured out how to best show you, so I'm gonna just go ahead and show you without being able to show my feet, etc. in this room, and just make do with what I have for now. Also, this chair rail is not ideal. If you are able to find some wall space that does not have chair rail, it won't matter for what I'm going to show you today, but for just rolling in general, this is going to get right in your way whenever you're trying to roll out your tissues. So that's another reason why I always roll downstairs. There's no chair rail. So what you're going to need for this practice is 2 tennis balls and a sock, or if you have a set of therapy balls from the studio, that's great. If you do have a sock and 2 tennis balls, what you're going to do is just take the 2 balls and put them in the sock side by side to make what some people will refer to as a peanut. You see it looks like a peanut. And then what you would do is just tie the end. I'm going to use my tote, so I'm not going to tie the end here, but you would just tie a big knot in the end so that the balls don't move around on you too much. And there's this little space here that you can see, which is really valuable for certain movements, especially around the spine. So this is a simple way to use balls at home to massage your body. There's some certain contraindications that you're going to want to avoid. So if, for example, you have a muscle spasming, that spasm might be what's called a protective spasm. So that means that your nervous system has detected a threat of some kind, whether it's an actual threat or a perceived threat due to an old injury. Sometimes our body's like, whoa, what, the last time we were in that shape, we were laid up in bed for 3 days, so let's send a pain signal. So you'll get that pain signal, and you'll get this, it'll also send the signal to tighten up around that area. So when you have this protective spasm that's happening, if you go in and massage that out, it might feel great in the moment, it might hurt. Oftentimes it's gonna not feel so good, or it might be on that like hurts so good sort of scale. But if you go to roll out a muscle that is spasming, when you come off of rolling, or sometimes maybe a few hours later or even the next day, it might be too much, and you might actually be stiffer and have less range of motion and more pain. So you don't want to massage a muscle that's spasming. Another thing would be if you're using a lot of pressure, that would be more on the floor kind of work, but depending on your body, you could develop some bruising or something like that if you're going too hard. The reason that I use these balls is they have a sticky surface that can sort of catch the skin and shear the skin over the muscle, which is really helpful. The drawback to a tennis ball is it doesn't have that sort of sticky texture, but besides that, the actual forgiveness of the ball, that how hard it is between these balls and a tennis ball, is pretty much the same. But another ball that a lot of people often use is a lacrosse ball, and I do not recommend using a lacrosse ball. It's too hard. Jill Miller, who developed this practice, she likes to say soft tissue, use a softer ball. That we're working with soft tissue, our muscles, and if we use really hard balls like the lacrosse balls, what can happen, and this won't be for everybody, some people love rolling on lacrosse balls, but what can often happen is that there's so much force, since there's no forgiveness from the ball, it's pressing back into the tissue really hard, and your tissues will go, whoa, and that's similar to that, what I was talking before with the spasming, being protective, will activate our stretch response, and our muscle, our little neural receptors in the muscle tissue will say, whoa, hold up, that's too much, let's tighten up. So when you use those really hard implements on your soft tissues, you're often not getting as much out of the practice as you could be if you were using just a slightly softer ball. And then the other thing too with lacrosse balls or any really hard surface ball that isn't intended for this use, is that you could be rolling away around and say we were rolling around the glutes and you slipped and you caught your tailbone. Like, there's the potential to actually break your tailbone with a really hard ball and landing on it in a certain way. Same with the xiphoid process, which is like a sticky outy bone at the bottom of our sternum bone, our breastbone. So for those reasons, and also it really sucks when you roll across like a bigger bone that may not, be injured, but you could potentially bruise the tissue on the bone or come away from the practice with bruises, and that's not really helping anything. So use a soft ball, please. That's a big long tangent for that. So with this practice, what we're going to do is start off at the wall, and I'm going to have the two balls in a horizontal orientation on my back, and I'm going to start it up at the mid back, or sometimes people call this the bra strap level of the spine. The balls are going to be on the muscle tissue on either side of my back. So that little divot that I pointed out in the beginning, that's where my spinous processes, the hard part of my spine, is going to land, or not land really, so that there's room for the bones, so that you don't have to be rolling directly on those, which isn't very comfortable, even on these softer balls. So these two balls will roll up and down your erector spinae on either side, the big, long muscles on either side of your spine. And what we're going to do is start off, we'll start off at that bra strap level of the back. And then you can't see my feet, but what I'm going to do, if my feet were in really close to the wall, it would be really hard for me to get much pressure into the balls. So what I'm going to do is walk my feet about a foot and a half away from the wall. It's going to be dependent on your body, your leg length and everything. So right now I've just got my back pressing into the balls. I can take my hands onto my hips. At first I'm just going to slow my breath down. The breath work is really important with the massage work. So I'm giving my nervous system the cue that everything's a-okay. Slowing the breath down. Feeling the waistline expand. Feeling the belly expand. You can take your hands up onto the sides of your ribs and just feeling the ribs expand and contract. So continuing with that slow breath, I'm just going to slowly begin to bend my knees, and the balls will roll up the back a little, and then straighten my legs, and the balls will roll back down to about that mid point in the back. So just slowly bending and slowly straightening. So you get a little bit of a leg workout with this too. I should say as well that there's lots of this stuff that we can do on the floor. I just want to give this option at first for people who have never done this kind of work before, or have never received a deep tissue massage before. It can be a lot more pressure on the floor, and some people's bodies are sort of trained already to recognize that as a good healthy feeling, and some bodies are not, and it's not good for those bodies and minds. So we'll start off nice and slow with a little bit of pressure at the wall. So I'm just going to bend and stretch my legs a few more times. And then my legs are straight. Just going to adjust. If you might feel the balls tip in one direction or another, just reach back and readjust them. And then from here, they're still back in that same mid-spine area. I'm going to take my hands behind my head, and I'm still pressing into the balls, and I'll just take a little side bend to the right and a little side bend to the left. And just keep moving like that. One more thing I forgot to mention is that you want to make sure that you have lots of wall to work with. Don't go, for this stuff where your back is to the wall, don't go to like a corner or a doorway kind of thing, because you may just start rolling and things will start feeling good and you can roll your way right off the wall, which can be scary. So make sure you have lots of space to work with. And then come back to center, release your hands back down, and then just do this little pulse. This little pulse. My knees are bending and straightening, but I'm not going as deeply as I was before. And then walk your feet back in, take the balls away, and then now I'm going to take them a little higher up, so they're almost they're just at the base of my shoulder blades. So at the very bottom tips of my shoulder blades here. Come back to the wall, and then again slowly, you're crooked, slowly bending and stretching. So now they're going to go a little further up the back. They're going all the way up in between my shoulder blades. And this spot is a lot of people's favorite to work. So we're going to work it in this vertical direction. We're also going to work it in horizontal direction in a moment. And once you have the basics down of what we're doing here, you can feel free to explore a little bit on your own and see what your body is telling you. So pausing here, I'm just going to readjust a bit here. Take my hands back behind my head, pressing into the balls, maybe a little firmer than you were before, and then a little side bend from one side to the other. And then coming back up, release your hands and then do that little chug, 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 chug. So it's just a little pulsing action of the knees so that you can be a little more focused. You could explore by bending your knees to a really deep bend and then pulsing there so that you're a little higher up on the back. You could come up midway and pulse, or almost all the way and pulse. And then I'm going to come away from the wall once again. This time I'm going to turn the balls vertically and take them between the spine and the shoulder blade. So I'm just going to internally rotate my arm so you can see the medial border or the inside edge of my scapula or shoulder blade. So I want to take the balls vertically in between the shoulder blade and the spine. So I'm going to lean back into the wall. And then I'm just going to, I've got my hands on my hips. Just going to shift my weight from one side to the other. So I'm rolling a little bit onto my shoulder blade, and you can go much further once you kind of roll that area out. You could roll onto the shoulder blade and even onto the arm, which feels really nice, getting into some of those rotator cuff muscles. And then we'll switch sides. So that was my left. I'm just going to do the exact same thing on the right side. My feet are still but a foot, foot and a half away from the wall. And I've just got my hands on my hips, rolling from the inside edge of my shoulder blade to the spine. If you get into any lumpy bumpy, I'm coming across a little restriction here, and I could pause and hang out and breathe into that. That's a nice way to let things go. But you can also continue rolling across them. So I'm going to keep rolling now across my shoulder blade a little and onto the very outside of my shoulder. Okay, and then, so now I'm actually going to take the balls out of the tote or out of the sock. If you need to pause, go ahead and do that. And I'm going to take the balls onto my upper traps. And what I'm going to do is reach with my right hand for my left shoulder. I'm going to walk right in to the sort of corner where my shoulder and neck meet, and all along the top of my shoulder. We're all pretty familiar with these muscles. They are muscles that hold onto a lot of tension. So what we're going to be doing is finding, when you walk your hands along here, if you went a little further down the shoulder blade, you'd feel bone. That's the spine of your scapula. So you want to be just above that, in that soft tissue. What I'm going to do now to start is both balls are going to come to the little corners where the neck and shoulders meet. You want to make sure your hair is up and you've got no stragglies, because it really hurts when they pull. Okay, so my feet are again about a foot and a half away. I'm going to just do a little bit of a up-down, subtle knee bend to get into these muscles at first. And then I'm going to just shift my torso from side to side and let the balls roll along the tops of my shoulders. It's just a very small side to side motion. And then from here, it's hard for you guys to see, but I'm still locked into that corner. I'm not on the neck itself. I'm right at the spot where the corner of my neck meets the top of my shoulder. And from here, I'm going to reach my arms forward all the way up to the ceiling and then meet the wall. Slowly slide your arms down the wall. Turn the palms in, reach the arms forward, up, out to the sides, all the way down. So what we're doing here is we're pinning the muscle tissue with the ball, but then by moving the shoulders and arms, the shoulder blades, we're getting that muscle to do both its action. Basically, we're shortening and lengthening the muscle as we move the arms. And then you could pause. You could even come into like a cactus shape with your arms to get a nice chest stretch here. And then from here, still pressing into those balls, I'm just going to slide my forearms up the wall and back down and down a little lower. So I'm almost trying to hug my elbows in towards my side body. Draw those shoulder blades down and then reach back for those balls. I'm just going to take the one on the right side away and hold on to it in my hand and leave the left one where it is. So now I'm on still my upper trap. I'm down a little bit onto the upper back more so here now. And what I'm going to do, so I'm not on the neck at all, I'm just going to roll from side to side. You can, with just the one ball, you can go a little further in each direction. And you can just twist and side bend and contort the body to get into those little sticky areas 2 more little rolls here. And then you can switch to the other side or just put the ball same spot on the other side. A little shift from side to side. It's down, up a little too high. Dipping my shoulder down so that it comes up onto the top. There is a great way to get right into this tissue that requires a door frame that I can't show you in this video because I don't have a cameraman, but I will get to it in another video for you guys. Okay. And then take that ball away. One more thing that I'm going to do is take the balls into my chest muscles. Now, this is another one that is more ideal at a door frame. I'm going to use a block. So I have a block and the wall, a larger ball. These guys do make larger balls that I normally use for this muscle, but if you just have a tennis ball, that's totally fine. You can still do lots of work. If you have 2 tennis balls, that's nice because you're going to make the pressure a little broader, which is especially nice in the pecs. And also, this is not for everybody. We oftentimes have really tight muscles in our pecs, and the tissue itself is more tender tissue. So if you get on there and it's not feeling great, just come off of it. What I'm going to do is take my the chest onto the ball, onto the block. So I'm going to lean, I've got the ball here, or the block at chest height. This could also be a book, anything to just take the wall a little closer to you, or you can take this to the door frame. I'm going to walk, my feet are still about, probably only about a foot away from the wall here now, and then I'm going to lean my chest onto the ball. So my chest and the weight of my body is holding that block in place. I'm not holding it up at all, but you could make a little L shape with your hand and just gently guide it to stay where you want it to stay. And then I've got my right hand on the wall, and I'm just going to reach my arm up and then lower my arm back down. And do that a few times. If you've never had pec massage, this is not going to feel good. Or it might be that hurt so good feeling. If you get any tingling or numbness in your hands, just come off of the ball and replace the ball. We do have a big neurovascular bundle in the chest here. We don't want to we want to agitate the nerves. So if you do end up getting any tingling or heaviness, just come off and replace the ball in a better spot. I'm also not letting the ball roll like down into my armpit area either. There are techniques that do that, but there is a lot of nerves in that area, and I don't have time to go into all that in this video today. Okay, then I'm going to switch sides. Same thing, other side, bringing my pec muscle. I'm kind of in the spot, I've got a sports bra on, so I feel, I'm in the spot where my chest meets my armpit, but not right in the armpit. And again, hold it up with my little L-shaped hand, and then bring my hand onto the wall. Slowly slide the hand up and down. Two more little sweeps here. And take the ball away. And then one more little exercise. So the muscles in our mid back and our upper back they're they're probably the muscles that I hear the most frequent complaints about. When people come in, it's a really common area for people wanting massage, and a lot of that is because of sitting at computers, we're rounding forward, or any of our jobs where we're really using our arms a lot and the chest muscles are tight, like massage therapists, for example, we get really tight pecs. We want to open up the chest and strengthen up the back. That doesn't mean you can't massage the back, doesn't mean you can't stretch those muscles, but we do need to create, we need to strengthen those muscles. And we also, sometimes even if you're in the middle of your day and you're at your computer and your back starts to get a little bit achy in that region, you could try doing just what I'm about to show you here. Sometimes giving some novel input to your nervous system by contracting the muscles can actually relieve the pain. Because what's happening when we're like this is that our muscles are stretched. They're not really stretched. They're lengthening while they're contracting. So it's an eccentric contraction. So they get locked long, some people will call it. So they're rounded forward, they're locked long. Our body, because we're in that shape all day long, is like, well, if we're here all the time, I might as well make it work for you. And your body will actually start to lay down connective tissue over top or thicken the connective tissue in that region. Excuse me. So while we can, roll it out, massage it, stretch it and everything, it's very, very, if not more important to strengthen it. And there's all kinds of these little imbalances that can happen for a variety of reasons in our body. But this is one of the most common. All right, so I'm going to bring my arms wide. You might not be able to see my entire arms, but I'm bringing them wide into a letter T shape. And what I've again got my feet just probably about a foot away from the wall. And I'm just going to press the back of my head gently into the wall. There is some space behind the back of my neck, which there should be. If this is happening in your best efforts to get your arms back to the wall, you're going to want to keep your arms coming a little further forward. So you might put a couple of towels behind the backs of your hands or forearms and just work on pressing the hands into the towels, giving yourself a bit more space rather than forcing too much extension into the spine. If your upper back is super, super rounded and has been for a long time, there could be some fusing in the joints there. So we want to make sure that we're not forcing the body into positions it's not prepared to be in. But if you can comfortably reach your hands back to the wall, you're going to press the fingernails, the backs of your hands, forearms, all the way up into your shoulder blades into the wall. And you're going to hold that for 7 to 10 seconds. And relax. Take a little break. Sway out your arms a little bit and then come right back into it. So again, pressing through the fingernails, backs of the arms, shoulder blades into the wall. Don't let your rib cage flare out. Keep your ribs stacked over your pelvis. And relax. Your arms a little sway or shake. And one more time, bringing the arms back into that letter T shape. Pressing the hands into the wall. Pressing the shoulder blades. And this actually starts to get really challenging. I've seen people sweat doing this. So even though it looks like it's really easy, what we're doing by just gently pressing into the wall is we're engaging our little stability muscles rather than our big global movers, so our bigger muscles that want to take over the work. Instead, we're working with our little stabilizers and strengthening them. And relax. Give your arms a little shake. So you can do the exact same thing in a higher up position, a letter Y shape, and in a letter A shape. Just for the sake of keeping this video short, I'm going to leave it in that letter T one, but you can do all three. You could even go letter A, letter T, letter Y, and then cycle back down through that as a great way to strengthen and stabilize the upper back and shoulders. So I hope that helps sort things out for you. If you have any requests on other little videos for certain areas of the body, feel free to send me a message. Okay, thanks so much.